Hi, this is Scott Marshburn with eCabinets Tips and Tricks. In part 2 of formatting eCabinets cut list in Excel, I showed you how you could record a macro to format the sheet component listings. In this video, we will be editing the code to make it lightning fast. So stay tuned and see how I done it. In part 2 of this series, I showed you how to record a macro to format your sheet component listing automatically. And in this video, I want to show you how you can go into the actual macro and make a few changes and speed it up dramatically. But before I do that, I want to do a comparison. So I'm going to run the macro first and see how fast it actually executes. So I'm going to go into macros here, and I'm going to find the macro that I recorded, and I'm going to run it. And you can see how it's executing. It's doing a lot of selecting and scrolling and what have you. But actually it didn't take very long to do that. But at the same time, there's not a lot of data here. So the more data there is, the longer it's going to take. What I want to do is I want to actually modify that macro a little bit. So I'm going to go into Visual Basics here under my Developer tab. Click on Visual Basics. Now it brought up the entire code here. It actually came right into the module that the code was stored in. And you see right here under my VBA project personal XLB, it's got these modules, and that's what the code is stored in. Now if you double click on the module, it'll take you right to the code. And what I want to do first is I want to rename that module. And now you can't put the sub name in there, but you can change it around a little bit, and the only thing I'm going to do is abbreviate it, and that's going to help me later on to identify that particular macro. So I'm just going to change the name, and I just abbreviated it, shortened it up a little bit, and it's format sheet comp list. So what I want to do first is go through and get rid of all this active scroll stuff here. And also right here where it says columns HH entire column auto fit, this is where I widened the column widths up so we could see what was going on when we were actually recording the macro and deciding what to do for the text columns and all that. What I want to do is I just want to comment this out. Now I'm using the comment out feature here because I don't want to actually delete this stuff yet, just in case we remove some of this that we actually need. In other words, we start getting errors or whatever, we can come back and uncomment this. So I'm just going to use my comment block here. I'm going to comment that out. Now I'm going to go through the code, and everywhere it says active window dot scroll, I'm going to comment that out, highlight it and comment it. And you can see right here we have active window small scroll to right equals 3. And I'm pretty sure I don't need that. And let's see, let's go right here, comment that out, and right down here. And you wouldn't believe how much this slows down the code. Just by getting rid of this will speed it up dramatically. You see how many times we scrolled there. That's quite a bit. So comment that out, and here's some more. Here's a little bit more right here. And I think that's everything. Come on down here and double check and make sure. Yep, that's everything. So what I want to do now is put a couple of lines of code in here that's definitely going to speed everything up. And that code is application.screenUpdating equals false. So I'm just going to type that in. Now when I hit dot, it brings up this dialog box here. Now if I start typing screen or type S, it brings up screen updating. Now I can hit tab or double click on it, and when I hit equals, it's going to let me select true or false. I want false. And what that does is it just keeps the screen on wherever you start the macro. In this case right here, it's going to keep the cut list summary up. It's not going to jump over there and select, or it's actually going to select it, but it's not. You're not going to see it happen. You're not going to see that sheet component listing here until the macro is completed, or until we turn screen updating back on. And that being said, if you do turn screen updating off, you need to make sure that somewhere in the code you turn it back on. And right now I'm going to come down here right before end sub, and I'm going to turn it back on. So I'm going to type in application.screenUpdating equals true. And I'm just going to type equals and select true. Now we can execute this code here and see how it works. So I'm going to make this smaller so it'll be out of our way and we can see what's going on. So let me select cut list 2 here and bring up our Visual Basics. And I can just be anywhere inside the body here, and I can just hit F5 on my keyboard there, and it'll execute that code. So I'm going to hit F5, and you can see just how quick that did it. I mean, that was a heck of a lot quicker. Now, another thing I want to do is I want to create a message box that's going to ask me if I want to hide my edge banding, and another message box to ask me if I want to hide my inset carvings. One thing about message boxes is that while the message box is visible, you can't interact with the worksheet. But in another video, I'll show you how you can do it without a message box altogether, or you can create a custom message box using a user form, and then there's a setting that you can set that user form so that you can actually click in the worksheet and scroll up to see if you actually need to hide the edge banding. In other words, if you got a message box come up right now the way I've got this, and it says, do you want to hide edge banding, and the only thing you see is none, well, while that message box is up, you can't look to see if there actually is any edge banding. So if you're going to use this method, make sure that you check this out first before you run the macro to see if you actually need to hide it or not. And I'm using the hide column because once you run the macro, if you delete this column, you can't get it back. But if you hide it, at least you can unhide the column. So that's why I like to do that. Anything that macro does, you cannot undo. You can't hit the undo button and get rid of it. So let me make this a little bit bigger, and we're going to come down to the bottom of our code here, and right before application.screenUpdating equals true, I'm going to put a message box in here. You need to have a variable, and the variable I'm going to use is answer1 and answer2. You can type whatever you want to for your variable. I've got answer1 here, and I need to type equals, and I want message box. And the way you get that started is you just type msg box, msg box, one word, just like that. And I'm going to put an open parentheses. Now, if I didn't put an open parentheses here, when I click yes, it wouldn't do nothing, no matter what kind of code I had. Make sure you put parentheses. Now it's asking for a prompt, and this is the question that you want to ask or the comment that you want to make. And I'm going to start it out with a quote, and I'm going to type in, do you want to hide edge banding? And end that up with a quote. And I'm going to hit or type comma, and this is giving me the different options I have for my message box. I want a VBA or VB yes no. Now I can just start typing VB, and when I hit Y, it's going to bring up highlight VB yes no. I can double click, and now I want to give my message box a title. So I'm going to hit comma, and it's asking for the title, and I want to put that as hide columns. So quote, and then hide columns, and end quote. Now I need to put a close parentheses, and that's got our message box set up. Now I need to put some code in here so that when I click yes, it will hide the column. First, I need to change this from EDG to EDGE. I'm going to hit tab, and I'm going to do an if statement. So I'm going to type in if answer 1 equals VB yes, then do something. So I got if answer 1 equals VB yes, so VB yes, and then I need the word then. And I'm going to hit enter. So that means that, you know, the user clicks VB yes. If they click yes, then we're going to do something. So when we hit tab, I'm going to go columns, and I need to tell Excel what columns I want to hide. So I'm going to put open parentheses, quote, capital F, colon, capital F, end quote, and end parentheses. It's saying the entire column F here, which is our edge banding. Now I need to put the syntax in here for it to hide it. So it would be dot entire column dot hidden equals true. Now you can see right here where I've got dot entire column dot hidden equals true. I've got entire column as one word, and I got everything lowercase. And dot entire column, it does need to be one word. But if I got everything, the syntax correct here, when I hit enter, it's going to capitalize everything for me. And so that looks good. So what I want to do now is I need to put end if in here. You got an if statement, you have to have end if at the end. So now I need answer 2. So I'm just going to highlight all this, and I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to come down here and paste. Now, let me get this cleaned up a little bit. I want to change this to a 2, and I want to change this to inset carvings. And everything else is the same. I need to change this to 2. So if answer 2 is yes, then change this to G. And there we go. We're all done with that. Now, currently, where this application.screen updating equals true is that we're not going to be able to see our sheet component listing until we have selected yes or no. And actually, I want to be able to see, you know, what's going on here before I make my decision. So I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to click cut. And right here, before we start our message boxes, I'm going to put application screen updating equals true right there. So at least we'll be able to see, hopefully, if there is any edge banding on here, we'll be able to see it. Like I said, you don't have to do that. And as far as these message boxes goes, in this particular scenario, you probably need to make that decision ahead of time, and then you know whether or not you need to hide it. In another video, or maybe even the next one, we'll make this a little bit more user friendly. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up another worksheet and put list 3 here, and I'm going to run that code again and see how that works. And I'm going to make sure I'm in the body of code here, and I'm going to hit F5 to execute the code. So F5. And you can see that we're on our sheet component listing, and it's asking me, do you want to hide edge banding? Well, fortunately, I can see edge banding here, but if I try to click or scroll or anything like that, it's just not going to let me. So I'm going to hit no. Now, if I didn't have any in here, or if I didn't want to hide it, I just hit yes, and it would hide it. So I'm going to hit no, and it's not going to hide it. And now it's bringing up my next one. Do you want to hide inset carvings? Well, I happen to know that I don't have any inset carvings, so I'm going to click yes to hide it. and you can see that it hit it. So that's how that works. So what I want to do is I'm going to make this bigger here, and I'm going to go ahead, and since I know everything's working properly, I can actually delete everything that I've got commented out if I want to. So, or you can leave it there, it don't matter. It's not going to be usable, it's not using it, so just make sure you only delete what you have commented. Don't accidentally delete something else. So I'm going to hit my delete key, and I'm going to select this and delete that. Just make sure you don't accidentally delete some code there. So I want to delete that and this. Now we can test this code again. So I'm just gonna X out of this and see what happens when we use our Control Shift. So I'm gonna bring up another cut list here. Actually, let's just X out of this. Don't save, and I'm gonna open it back up. Alright, so if I go Control Shift and S, it's asking me, do you want to hide edge banding? No, I don't. Do you want to hide inset carvings? Yes, I do. And there you go. So that's about it for that. On the next video, I'll be showing you how you can create a for next loop that will go through and look at this column here. It'll look at each cell in this column. If it finds something other than none, it's going to just automatically exit that loop and not even prompt you to hide. Or you can actually tell it, you can still, you can have the message box say, hey, you've got edge banding, do you still want to hide this column? And if you say no, then it'll continue on. Now if it goes through and it finds nothing but none in here, you could tell it to automatically hide this. In the same way with the inset carvings. And like I said, I didn't tell it to delete it for the simple reason, if I need this column back, I can just hover over that where that column is, and whenever my cursor turns to two lines with the arrow on the left and right, I can double click and it'll bring it back. So I hope this video helped. If it did, give me a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe to my channel so you can get all my latest tips and tricks. And as always, thank you for watching, and have a good day.